Before we begin the video, we need to provide you with some information on verification. Growers are required to attend an informational and educational meeting once a year, and this video satisfies the requirement. The Coalition needs a way to provide viewer verification of this video, and a scheme has been devised to provide the verification. Pause this video, retrieve a pen and paper, and be prepared to write down the answers to 3 very specific questions that are interspersed within the video. When the verification questions are asked, simply write down the answers and provide them on the invitation card sent to you. If you've misplaced your invitation, you can download a generic copy from the Coalition's website, www.westsidesjr.org. Then mail, fax, or email the card with your answers using the information provided on the card. If you have a pen and paper and are prepared, please restart the video. I want to welcome you today to the Westside San Joaquin River Watershed Coalition. This is our grower outreach meeting video presentation for crop year 2020. I want to mention today Joseph McGahan, who's our watershed coordinator. Presenters on this video today will be Orville McInnes, myself, the program manager for the Westside San Joaquin River Watershed Coalition. Also presenting today will be Tess Dunham, an attorney with Kahn, Soares & Conway. We also have Ken Miller, a soil scientist and agronomist with Formation Environmental. Perry Clausen will also be involved. He's the executive director. He's with the Coalition for Urban Renewal Environmental Stewardship, better known as CURES. So our agenda today is we're going to be doing COVID-19 Coalition guidelines and practices. This all plays into why we're doing this video. There'll be an overview of the required forms and reporting deadlines for our growers. We'll be giving you some general Coalition information. We're going to discuss groundwater protection requirements. We're also going to discuss salt and nitrate control programs. We're going to review surface water quality concerns. We want to discuss also management plans and management plan completion requests. We'll be discussing as well the domestic well sampling program that growers who have a well in the Coalition will need to have sampled, and then we're going to discuss our web portal 2021 availability update. The COVID-19 Coalition guidelines and practices are such that our staff, our consultants, and other personnel will follow their company's COVID-19 policies and the current California COVID guidelines for each county when they're interacting with Coalition members. And moving forward, the Coalition expects the state of California's guidelines to become a bit more relaxed and to allow for some type of in-person interactions. And in the event that we are able to go with an in-person meeting and they're permitted, the Coalition will continue to follow current policies and the guidelines to provide attendees the safest environment possible. If an in-person interaction is contemplated, the Coalition is going to reach out to the members for their preferences for that interaction. And for those Coalition members who wish not to participate in any kind of in-person meetings, the Coalition will attempt to provide but cannot guarantee an alternative method to satisfy the meeting requirements. So this is our Coalition boundary. Many of you are familiar with this already. I wish we had a higher resolution for you, but notated on there are our monitoring sites, and so this again is our boundary of our Watershed Coalition. As you can tell, it runs essentially from the San Joaquin River all the way to the top of the Pacific Crest Mountains, but really we're concerned with mostly between the San Joaquin River and I-5. We have here a map for high vulnerability area for surface water. This high vulnerability surface water requires growers to complete a farm evaluation survey, and those that are within the high vulnerability area will be notified that they need to attend a focused outreach meeting and complete a management practices implementation form. This next map is a high vulnerability area map for groundwater. It requires growers to complete an irrigation and nitrogen management plan, an irrigation and nitrogen management plan summary report, and those who are deemed to be application over yield outliers will be required to attend a focused outreach meeting and to complete a management practices implementation form. So here are our deadlines for our forms that we've briefly mentioned. The farm evaluation plan for high and low vulnerability farmers for crop year 2020 is due by March 1st. So at the time of this video, when you're viewing it, it's going to be late if you haven't already got it in, but we encourage you to get it in as quickly as possible. The next form is the irrigation and nitrogen summary report for crop year 2020 for all land, high and low vulnerability. It must be in to the coalition by April 15th, 2020, and it'll be done annually thereafter. For those that need a certified irrigation and nitrogen management plan, the INMP, for high vulnerability farms for crop year 2021, that needs to be done by April 15th, 2021, and annually thereafter. You keep this form on farm. The irrigation and nitrogen management plan stays on farm. The INMP for all low vulnerability farms for this year, crop year 21, is due by April 15th, 2021, and annually thereafter. But for low vulnerability parcels, certification is not required, and again, you keep this on farm. So all required forms that you'll be getting, you won't need to worry about high and low vulnerability, whether you're in a category. We'll provide that information for you for your convenience.
Verification question 1. Who won the 1901 World Series of Tiddlywinks? The answer, the Ridgecrest Roadrunners.
Here we have some general coalition information. For those that have a nitrogen management plan self-certification, you have until June 15th, 2021 of this year to complete the required 3 continuing education units. So you need to have those to maintain your self-certification status. And because of COVID-19, there have been no courses that are being offered currently, but the CEUs can be completed online by visiting the webpage indicated here, www.curesworks.org/nitrogen-management-plans. You can pause the video at any time, go back and put it on pause, and you can record that web address for yourself. But when you get there, you click on the continuing education courses in the Central Valley window, then you click the self-study continuing education link, and you follow the instructions. In the fall of 2020, a targeted group of growers in the Los Panos Creek, Wesley Wasteway, and Ramona Lake sub-watersheds were sent a focused outreach packet of information, which included a management practices implementation report form and a website address for a video presentation to view. Now, returning the completed form and viewing the video are a requirement of coalition membership. That's very important to understand, that when you're sent these forms and that video that you were asked to see, these are a requirement of being part of the coalition. To follow up on some general information, some growers have not responded back to the coalition as required. And since the coalition is required to have 100% participation, a follow-up communication is going to be sent to deficient growers. And when contacted, view the video online, and again at curesworks.org/westsidefo. You can again pause the video, you can write this down and keep it in your records, and then go visit the page. And when you get there, you need to fill out the MPIR and return it to the coalition. Now, growers who do not comply with the focused outreach requirements are going to be reported to the Regional Water Quality Control Board as deficient, and they're going to be subject to further regulatory oversight by the Water Board. We don't want to do this, but we're required by the Regional Water Quality Control Board to report all those growers who do not participate in the focused outreach. Also, focused outreach packets are going to be sent to the Blewett Drain and Mud Slough watersheds in the spring, maybe early summer of 2021. This is a new thing for the coalition, groundwater protection requirements. We call it formulas, values, and targets. It has to do with nitrate fertilizer. In February of 2019, the regional board required our coalition to create a formula to determine the amount of nitrate leaching past a plant's root zone. We call this the values. And the amount of nitrate fertilizer that can be applied, these are the targets, and still protect groundwater quality. Now, due to this program's highly technical nature, and the huge cost of the program, the coalition has partnered with several other coalitions to help reduce some of the costs to its members. The coalitions have now contracted with a consulting firm to begin the first phase of the program. And I'd like you to take a few moments here, if you would, we're going to see a video and review the video that provides more insight into this program.
When the Regional Water Board in 2012 adopted the new order that mandated reporting of nitrogen fertilizer applications, there was included a requirement to develop what is called a groundwater protection program. This program consists of three key components: a groundwater protection formula, groundwater protection values, and groundwater protection targets. The 13 Central Valley coalitions combined efforts to develop one approach for these three steps that is applicable to the entire region. A landscape-based model using cutting-edge technologies was selected as the most economical way to understand the contribution agriculture might be making to nitrates in groundwater aquifers. The University of California, in conjunction with the Almond Board of California and the California Walnut Commission, has spent millions of dollars on field studies that produced valuable information for those crops, but were limited to field-size research plots. If a field study approach were taken for all crops grown in the Central Valley, the cost to growers would be tens of millions of dollars. What the model does is simulate irrigated agriculture in the Central Valley using real-life cropping and management information at a fraction of the cost of performing the multitude of field studies that would be needed. Tess Dunham is working for the Central Valley coalitions to develop the groundwater protection program. Ms. Dunham is legal counsel for several Central Valley water quality coalitions and is an attorney with Conn, Soares & Conway in Sacramento.
What do those three components mean? The formula is that equation to calculate the values. And what is the value? The value is what is happening now with respect to agriculture as it currently exists. And the target is where do we need to go in the long run? Targets will be phased in over time. They will be implemented through the management plans that are prepared by the coalitions, and also the targets will consider recharge and other factors that occur in the Vado zone, but again, it's over time. So the beginning of the program starts with the development of a formula, and the formula was due to the Regional Water Quality Control Board on July 1st of 2020. What this model does is it is used to calculate what is the values at the root zone level. Most importantly, the groundwater protection values are calculated on a township basis. They are not field level based, although we use the information that all of you submit to your coalition. They are calculated and submitted to the water board on a township basis, and so there's one value per township, rather than looking at it on an individual crop or an individual field type basis.
Ken Miller is with Formation Environmental. They are an environmental consulting firm with offices in Sacramento and Boulder, Colorado. Formation works on issues ranging from air quality to water quality, and for clients such as municipalities, utilities, and private industry. The Central Valley Water Quality Coalitions have retained Formation to assist in the development of approaches for complying with the requirement to develop groundwater protection formulas, values, and targets.
We have developed a way in which to do that, to produce the most accurate and reflective estimate possible based on all the available information that is able to be leveraged for this process. That formula will be used to create values which are ultimately nitrate leaching estimates aggregated to the township level, and those values will be used to set targets, which is more of a long-term process to ultimately achieve compliance. On the data side of things, what we would like to do is integrate all the available data, California-specific data, to feed into our formula, to feed into our methods piece. And so on the data side, we're referring to we plan to leverage the irrigation nitrogen management plan data submitted annually by growers on high vulnerability land. and use that information to understand what crops are grown on the landscape and how they are managed, and feed that into our formula. We'd also like to leverage soil information, the most detailed soil information available in California, including spatial and tabular information. And we'd also like to leverage climatic information, the most detailed climate information as well. And so with these different data components, we can then model basically the most representative characterization of Central Valley agriculture with those data inputs. And as those data are procured, we would then integrate them into our methods, which is using the Central Valley SWOT model, which is a process-based model that I can describe in a little more detail shortly, but ultimately allowing that model to be the methods side of the formula component. A lot of thought went into different options, and ultimately this was selected as the most desirable model to use for this specific application. And there's a lot of reasons why we selected SWOT for the application of the Groundwater Protection Program. SWOT stands for the Soil and Water Assessment Tool, and SWOT is a model that was developed by the USDA, Agricultural Research Service, over the past 30 years, and has been constantly improved and updated along that time frame. So we know that nitrate leaching happens on a daily time step, right? It happens in events. As water irrigation is applied, nitrate can move through the soil profile. So SWOT actually operates on the daily time step, and so we can simulate those actions in a very granular way. It is a landscape level model, which means it's able to be used to simulate the Central Valley, which is of course a very large area. But the nice thing about SWOT is that we can actually model very small units of area within that larger domain. And so we can actually model down to the subfield level. And so for any given field, if you have a variety of soils, for example, within that field, we can actually model those uniquely and capture all of that information in a very granular way. What the crop actually does in the model is it's planted. We tell it when to be planted. It grows from solar energy. It photosynthesizes. As it's growing, it's accumulating biomass. It's taking up water, it's taking up nutrients, and as it reaches maturity, we can harvest a portion of that plant, remove it from the field. We can remove the nitrogen in that portion of the harvested material from the field. All of that is being captured in the model, and so there's an active crop growing in the model. On the management side of things, you can also be very detailed in SWOT, and so we can prescribe irrigation and fertilizer and try to do our best to represent what people actually do on the ground in the Central Valley. And so what that means is we can tell the model how much we're irrigating, when we're irrigating, how frequently we're irrigating, what type of irrigation we're using. Is it furrow? Is it drip? Is it sprinkler? In terms of fertilizer, we can specify fertilizer type. Within the SWOT model, we're able to digitally farm, right? And so what that means is we can grow a crop in the model, we can irrigate and fertilize when the crop needs it. As I've mentioned, SWOT considers information like climate and soil, right? And so soils, the properties associated with different soils are captured within the model and will influence the way in which nitrogen and water behave within the farming system. So as a function of your soils, water and nutrients will infiltrate at different rates. They'll hold water at different rates. They'll drain at different rates. And all of those different pieces are captured and as reflective as possible in that we're using the most detailed soil information available to us from the National Resources Conservation Service. And so all of these physical processes that are captured in SWOT are reflected. And so that first step is really just getting all of our data, all of our information together and understanding what that data really tell us. What we decided to do is let's try to model every possible scenario under the sun up front, and that way all that information, all those model runs can be generated in a more efficient manner and used into the future with very little upkeep. It's all getting aggregated to the township level. And so while this helps us really create a robust estimate of leaching within a township because we're tailoring all of this information to very unique model runs, at the end of the day, the information that reported is really within that 6 mile by 6 mile township. And so it doesn't actually expose any one given report on that side of things. Step 2 is developing the root zone library. And what this root zone library is, it's a massive database, right, of every possible SWAT run that we think is going on within the Central Valley, based on the crop management and yield matrix. For each crop that's grown within the Central Valley, we'll have a book associated with that crop. We'll have many, many, many runs associated with that crop, and all of those runs having an associated nitrate leaching estimate. Finally, once the root zone library has been populated for each crop, then we move on into step 3, right? And that's calculating the root zone values, right? And the way in which we calculate the values is we look and we do a matching exercise between grower reported information. So we look at, within that parcel, what soil that parcel contains, what crop was grown, how much nitrogen applied, and what was the yield. And we can look into our library and create a match for that given INP report. And then we match every single parcel within the township. We find a run for each of those parcels, and we roll that up to the township level value. Each crop will have a whole series of simulations associated with it to try to capture all that variability that's been reported in the INP reports. If we were to pull in INP information year after year and try to create a crop map and try to create a scenario for each of those fields within the whole Central Valley, that'd be a lot of work, and it wouldn't be very economical, right? And so there's a much easier way to go about this process. And so what we are proposing to do is to model each crop one at a time across the entire Central Valley, right? And so what that means is if we model one crop within our SWAT model, that means that we're going to grow that crop on every single soil and every single climate, right? And so as we do that, what that means is we'll create that root zone library, we'll create a run for everything under the sun. Even if it didn't happen this year, it may happen in the future. We're anticipating running the model north of 50,000 times. And we know that we can do this within a time frame of roughly 3 to 4 months. So at the end of the day, what we're talking about is having a book for each crop within the Central Valley with all of this information associated in that book, all of these potential model runs, all of these model runs in that book. What our intent is to create a vast library, try to simulate everything that's been reported thus far. If over time we ever need to model new scenarios with respect to management, something that we just haven't captured, we can always add to the library. It's a very flexible approach. And at the end of the day, by going through this workflow, we're actually creating agronomically sound outputs that are going to match INP data. What that means is for each book, for each crop in the valley, we're going to have north of 6,000 chapters, more than 6,000 combinations of climate and soil. And within each one of those chapters, we're going to have 400 and plus pages, those different management scenarios, those different yield scenarios. And so we're creating a very, very dense, very, very specific root zone library that contains all sorts of information that can be used onwards into the future. We'll have well over 2 million, really 2.5 million unique different climate and soil management outputs per crop. And what that means is in the future, as values need to be recalculated with this formula, they can be done so by a simple matching exercise. They can be done by going in to the already created library and looking for the most relevant run to generate that leaching estimate. And so once this product is completed, we can always add to it if needed, but it really is in the hands of the coalitions, and the coalitions will be able to use it onward into the future. What we're actually going through is we're matching, really at the sub-parcel level, all of the most relevant SWAT runs and taking all that information and folding it in to the actual township level value. What is the mass of nitrate that is leached and how much water has leached? As a reminder, a township is 6 miles by 6 miles. It's a 36 square mile grid. We'll be aggregating this based on the farm acreage. So what is associated with that NMP report is what we will be using. As these field studies continue to be carried out by the coalitions and their partners, we can look at that information and compare that to our model output. And we can use that information to continue to refine our model output onward into the future. If we take a lot of time and care putting in the best information possible, feed that into the model, what comes out of the model is a very robust representative estimate of nitrate leaching and percolation within irrigated agriculture.
The values calculated by the model for each township could be considered a snapshot of what is happening today with irrigated agriculture in that area. Then there is a groundwater protection target. The target sets the goal for the long term. Ms. Dunham explains where this is all leading.
Targets will be phased in over time. They will be implemented through the management plans that are prepared by the coalitions, and also the targets will consider recharge and other factors that occur in the VADO zone, but again, it's over time. So the beginning of the program starts with the development of a formula, and the formula was due to the Regional Water Quality Control Board on July 1st of 2020. I absolutely believe it will be adjusted and revised over time as we continue to learn about the program and how we are implementing it. But overall, the whole idea was having a metric that could be used to evaluate what we do on the landscape to groundwater without needing to have everybody put wells, groundwater monitoring wells, all over the valley, all over every field in order to evaluate potential impacts. I think that's actually one key component. It's important for us to realize that it's not every township within the Central Valley that needs a groundwater protection value, but it is those that are designated as high vulnerability townships. So, and high vulnerability meaning that they are vulnerable to leaching of nitrate. So that and so then the targets will be developed within a year and be part of our management plans for implementation moving forward. Your coalition will be coming to you and explaining this is what is currently estimated from the SWAP model to be leaching in this across this township below the root zone, and here's potentially what we need to think about as far as making changes moving forward over, hopefully, by tying it to CV salts, that 35-year period, as to how we get to meeting targets. So that is where you, the grower, will see the two programs come together and where you will see what it means to you directly. As many of you may know, there were challenges to the state board's adoption of what we call the ESJ order, and challenges by 3 different environmental justice communities challenging different components of that. And that happened by, I think, March of 2018. So over the last year, 2 years now, we have been in litigation on the side of the State Water Board trying to defend the order as it was adopted, including the anonymous reporting provisions that allows us to maintain your privacy and your autonomous and your confidential information with respect to farming and nitrates and how much nitrates is used in yields in your crops. Luckily, and I'm happy to say that after all of that and the briefing that went on October 23rd, we did receive a judgment from the court, and the court found and denied all causes of actions or claims by the environmental justice community, meaning that they found what the State Water Board did and the regional board combined to be fully within and compliant with the law, and that anonymous reporting did not violate the law. So we were pleased in order to be able to maintain and uphold these key provisions that we had fought very hard to get and keep in the State Water Board's process.
Welcome back. I hope you were informed on the formulas, values, and targets portion of this new program. We'd like to now talk about salt and nitrate control program. In May of 2018, the regional board adopted a resolution approving a new salt and nitrate control program. And in January of 2021, the water board sent to the coalition a notice to comply with this new regulation. And they sent it to us as a coalition to do this on behalf of the member growers in our coalition. And the regulation has an option to choose the permitting approach. The first approach is the conservative approach, which requires growers to meet the current water quality objective for salt and nitrate in the San Joaquin River Or there was the second approach, the alternative approach, which requires growers to participate in a prioritization and optimization study. The coalition has opted for the alternative approach, and it allows growers to continue to farm for now without having to make any on-farm adjustments to meet the more stringent salt and nitrate limits of the conservative approach. So with that being said, let's also watch now a short video that's going to introduce you to the salt and nitrate program and the benefits of the alternative approach.
Verification question 2. Who was the 1901 Player of the Year for the Toledo Mud Hens? Answer, Max Klinger.
On May 31, 2018, the Regional Water Board approved amendments to the Central Valley Water Quality Control Plans, or Basin Plans, which include the new salt and nitrate control programs. On October 16, 2019, the State Water Resources Control Board, or the State Board, also approved the amendments, followed soon after by the Office of Administrative Law in January 2020. Tess Dunham is here with us today to talk about the nitrate control program, a key part of the Basin Plan Amendment. She is legal counsel for several Central Valley Water Quality Coalitions and is an attorney with Kahn, Soares, and Conway in Sacramento. Ms. Dunham, along with the Central Valley Coalition leaders, spent the past 10-plus years working on ways to change how nitrate discharges were being regulated by the water boards. Existing enforcement tools, cease and desist orders and cleanup and abatement orders, and the approaching deadlines for meeting the nitrate drinking water standards for agriculture discharges left all industries with nitrate discharges little choice but to develop a different regulatory approach.
So under the nitrate control program that the regional board adopted, they are looking to prioritize. It is being implemented by identifying priorities, what we call in groundwater basins or subbasins, as to where the largest problems with nitrate and groundwater exist. The priority 1 basins, there are 6. They include Modesto, Turlock, Chowchilla, Cahuilla, Tule, and Kings. There is then priority 2, which is broader. Priorities in the Basin Plan were identified by evaluating nitrate groundwater quality over a substantial amount of time and data, and it was based upon the data and information brought together that the regional board, along with the executive committee for what we call the CV Salts Executive Committee, established the priority areas, again based upon levels of nitrate assumed to be within the groundwater based upon data that was readily available at the time that the analysis was done. The coalitions receive that notice to comply on behalf of all of its members when they have a groundwater basin in the coalition area that is considered to be a priority for nitrate. Once that notice to comply is received by the coalition, they need to start working and determining how they're going to develop management zones and working with all other dischargers of nitrate. It's important for the growers of the Central Valley to recognize that the nitrate control program doesn't just apply to irrigated agriculture, it also applies to dairies, POTWs, food processors, wineries, any industry that is regulated by the Regional Water Quality Control Board and discharges nitrate is subject to the Regional Board's nitrate control program. Agriculture is subject to the nitrate control program because we know that we cannot farm without applying nitrate-based fertilizers, whether compost, organic, or synthetic. While agriculture has greatly improved how it farms and how we utilize nitrate fertilizers, it's nearly impossible for most crops in the Central Valley to farm without some level of nitrate that might be available to leach to groundwater, even with the most modern of practices that we are employing today. Because of that inherent issue with respect to farming, we need the nitrate control program. The nitrate control program allows the Regional Water Quality Control Board to provide an exception to agriculture for meeting water quality objectives. Typically, the Regional Water Quality Control Board would only allow us up to maybe 5 to 10 years to meet nitrate water quality objectives in discharges below the root zone. With the nitrate control program, the Regional Water Quality Control Board will now have the ability to allow agriculture and dairies and others up to 35 years. This does not mean that we need to show that the groundwater meets the nitrate objective within 35 years. It means that we have to show within 35 years that irrigated agriculture is no longer causing or contributing to an exceedance of what we call the nitrate objective. The nitrate objective is a drinking water standard. It was set by EPA back in the 70s. One of the key components of the nitrate control program, in order for the regional board to give us the flexibility of up to 35 years, we do have an obligation to make sure that those that are impacted by nitrate in their groundwater have access to safe drinking water. It's just a moral obligation that we have. We need to make sure that people have access.
We know that public water supply systems that serve cities and small communities already use treatment to ensure the water they deliver meets the nitrate drinking water standard. But in the Central Valley, there are a lot of small communities of 25 connections or less and rural residences with wells that don't meet the nitrate drinking water standard. So we in agriculture have to pay a share of the cost for providing water to these residences?
That was the trade-off. We make sure people have access to safe drinking water. The regional board is able to give us a longer time period for when we can control nitrate and fertilizer, allowing us to develop the technology and the information that we need in order to move forward. The whole idea with the management zone is that all dischargers are coming together in order to determine how is the best way to address nitrate in the long run, and also to make sure people have safe drinking water in the interim. It is the expectation that those in agriculture, as well as dairies and others, will pay for at least the access to interim drinking water. For irrigated agriculture and those growers that are part of the coalitions, you won't necessarily see the direct requirements of the nitrate control program on how it impacts you every day, other than potentially the fees that you pay your coalition. Each coalition will establish on their own how they want to administer and have the administration for those management zones and working with other dischargers. But your coalition will be providing overviews and information specific to how they will implement the nitrate control program for those management zones that are, or those areas that are priority under the nitrate control program.
And as so often happens with any new regulations these days, the environmental justice activists threatened to challenge this new approach even before it was adopted. To head that off, a group of permit holders held weeks of negotiations with the Water Board and NGOs. That resulted in targeted revisions to the Basin Plan Amendment to address those concerns. How did we fare?
They did not get everything they wanted. We did not get everything we wanted either. So under the nitrate control program, when a basin is considered to be a priority and the Water Board sends out the notice to comply, that kicks off the time frame of when actions have to happen. For those priority 1 basins, once the notice to comply was sent, there is essentially a 270-day-ish clock. In this case, the regional board for the priority 1 basins, they sent out the notices to comply in May of 2020, and they've given everybody until March 8th of 2021 to submit a preliminary management zone proposal. There are 3 primary deliverables that management zones will need to put forward. The first one is a preliminary management zone proposal. That preliminary proposal is this is who we are, these are all the dischargers that are participating, this is how we're going to govern ourselves, this is how the area for the management zone, this is the basin or the physical geographic area that is being covered by this management zone, these are all the participants. And also the most important part of that is an early action plan. The early action plan is how is that management zone going to work to try to take care of immediate or interim drinking water needs for those that may have been impacted with nitrates in groundwater. This, under the final management zone proposal, it allows the dischargers to further refine and basically put together their management zone and the governance for the management zone. After that, then there starts developing the management zone implementation plan. So the first two deliverables are more about governance and organization and implementation of early action plans. And then the last deliverable is the management zone implementation plan, which is how all of these dischargers in the management zone are going to come together and address nitrates in groundwater over the long run and in their various discharges. I understand that all of this sounds daunting and scary, and it is. However, the purpose of the nitrate control program was to give us that extended time period. 35 years is huge. Being able to give us a 35-year time period and giving the regional board more flexibility for addressing nitrate is helpful for agriculture by far in the long run. Without the nitrate control program and the additional authority that's been provided to the regional board, we probably would be looking at needing to show how we are going to meet in below the root zone in the next 5 years, which would have been an impossible task. So yes, it's going to cost us, and no one likes that. We all understand that cost is difficult. But overall, in the long run, it does give us a launching and a time frame to address the nitrate in agriculture so we can continue to flourish and to maintain the sustainability of agriculture in the Central Valley. We all recognize that agriculture has made great strides in improving farming in order to protect water quality. And we have come a long way. Unfortunately, we just haven't come to the level that we need to. We will get there. You know, agriculture in California, if anything, it's innovated and it's on the cutting edge, and have full confidence that we will be able to get to where we need to be. But we wanted to make sure we had the time necessary to do that.
Welcome back. I hope that video on salt and nitrate was beneficial to you. We now want to discuss water quality concerns. One of the concerns is sediment moving off of the farm. As a grower, you're required to keep it to what's called background levels. You should do your best to keep sediment on your farm and not moving away. We're going to discuss a little bit about water and sediment toxicity. We are concerned about pesticides and herbicides. As you know, that chlorpyrifos has been banned, but diazonon and malathion still can be some of the OPs that we're having issues with. Pyrethroids now have taken center stage in our detection at our monitoring sites. These are Brigade, Capture, Leverage, Baythroid, Karate, and Warrior, to name a few. Also Diaron, the herbicide, keeps showing up, and we have to do our best, guys and gals, to maintain those pesticides and herbicides on our farm and not let them be discharged off of our farm. We have the issue of salinity, salt in the water, E. coli, dissolved oxygen, pH, and these four are kind of second-tier concerns that we're dealing with kind of in the background. There isn't a whole lot that we can do on farm or in the coalition right now to deal with these issues. Of course, salinity is being dealt with through the CV Salts program, and as you saw a little bit earlier in the video, through the salt and nitrate program. And we're going to discuss also this afternoon management plan completion requests. So these management plan and completion requests they address water quality problems. The coalition's been monitoring the sub-watersheds for the last 10 years or more, and during that time, exceedance of water quality limits for pesticides and sediment toxicity have triggered management plans. We call them MPs. The MPs are a set of actions agreed upon by the regional board and the coalition to address water quality impairments. And the coalition has been given 10 years or less from the time the MP was triggered to complete the MP. And complete means that we have to solve the problems. The 10-year window is closing, and many of the management plans are without completion. And the regional board indicates we are late. They understand we are late. They understand the difficulty of getting this done, but they've notified us that we're late. And the coalition, with the help of growers, must get the MPs completed in a very short time. There are consequences if we cannot complete the MPs, and we'll discuss that a little later. Here is our strategy. The strategy is outreach and education. This video that we're doing today, that you're viewing right now, is part of that education process and outreach. The members are to implement additional management practices when and where they're feasible, monitoring to assess long-term changes in water quality. And with improved water quality, it means the coalition can petition for the completion of the management plan and reduce monitoring and eventually costs. So how do we complete the management plans? Well, first we have to demonstrate that improved grower implemented management practices have resolved water quality problems. We require growers to evaluate their current farm management practices and implement new or additional management practices to address water quality impacts. Affected growers are required. I cannot stress this enough, folks. Affected growers are required to attend a focused outreach meeting and complete a focused outreach management practice survey when you've been notified to do so. Now, because of COVID-19 restrictions, we're currently precluded from any face-to-face meetings. So online videos are being used to address this meeting requirement. So there's a process to complete the management plan. So water monitoring data has to demonstrate there's been no exceedances of the particular constituent for at least 3 years. If the constituent was diazinon, we have to make sure that for 3 years diazinon didn't show up in any of our water quality testing at that site that's affected. We have to document coalition education and outreach efforts to the applicable members where the exceedances occurred. These are the folks who are invited to the focused outreach meetings. We have to document that the grower implemented management practices that addressed water quality problems have been effective. We need to demonstrate that implemented management practices are effective at addressing water quality problems. So we ask you on these MPIR forms to tell us what you think you could address on your farm to better help water quality. And we do that, we follow up to make sure those practices have been implemented. If we can then show that for the last 3 years there have been no exceedances of the constituent of concern, then we can go forward and ask for a management plan completion. And then part of the process is we have to continue to track ongoing management practice implementation by growers through the farm evaluation process. So you're seeing now that all the forms you fill out for us every year that we're very grateful you do, they all have meaning, they all have purpose, so we need to have you fill those out to the best of your ability. There are consequences of not completing management plans. I hope we never get there. I hope this never comes into play. But a determination of inadequate progress, meaning if the time schedules haven't been met, if that determination is made by the executive officer, it's going to trigger one or more of the following. Develop and implement an edge of field monitoring study that plans to characterize commodity-specific discharge and determine new management practices for growers to implement. This is very costly, very onerous. There would be on-site verification of management practices and evaluation of the adequacy of those practices. And the one that's the most stringent would be an individual WDR. Revoke the coalition coverage of the individual parcels and require the farmer to file a report of waste discharge with the Regional Water Quality Control Board. So with that being said, this is something new now that has come into play. This isn't directly by the coalition, but we are helping our growers to be able to get into the domestic well sampling program and get that well sampled correctly. And so starting in January 2021, members are required to conduct testing and monitoring for nitrate only of all drinking water supplies that are present on enrolled parcels. So if you have a farmhouse, a shop, or something where people are drinking the water and that parcel is enrolled in the coalition, then that parcel needs to be, the well on that parcel needs to be sampled. If the well is not on a parcel in the coalition, you can disregard the notice for that area. So the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board has sent a domestic well sampling packet to all members of the coalition. This packet contains the required forms and instructions to complete the sampling and the reporting process. If you need a replacement packet, if you didn't get one, you can contact the coalition and we'll do our best to get it to you. Again, we didn't send that to you, but we do have a generic copy that we can print and get out to you or email as well. So if a well is identified as exceeding the MCL, that's a drinking water limit, 10 milligrams per liter for nitrate, the member must notify the Central Valley Water Board and the user of the well in a timely manner. Nitrate is not good for people to drink, and so the regional board wants to make sure that you're notifying everybody that has contact with that well that there's a potential for an issue with nitrate. And members have until December 31st, 2021 of this year to complete the first round of sampling. Lastly, we want to discuss the web portal. The Coalition has an internet-based web portal. This application is there to allow growers to access the important forms and information online to get these forms filled out for us. The grower is going to be able to complete their 2020 farm evaluation surveys and the irrigation and nitrogen management plan summary reports. Again, these are for crop year 2020. Now, each grower is going to have a listing of the parcels they farmed in the previous year. They're at the web portal site. If the APNs are not correct, you will be able to change them. If you have trouble, you can contact us here at the Coalition, and our IT guy will help you with that. We've built in features to the application to assist the grower in filling out the forms correctly so that accurate data is provided back to the Coalition. The web portal is currently active and can be currently accessed to complete crop year 2020 forms. The login and sign-up information has been sent to the growers who have not yet used the web portal, and it's going to be included with your mailed survey packet. So look through that packet of information and you'll find your web portal login information. Now, previous web portal users will be able to log in using your existing login information. And look, we encourage everybody that can to avail yourself of this, use this website, use the web portal. It may take a little learning, but we're here to help you the best we can. But it provides back to us data in a really great format, easy to look, easy to use, and it saves cost as well, so we don't have to manually enter your data into our database system.
Verification question 3. Where does Ralph Cramden's wife reside? Answer: the moon.
If you have any questions, you can contact your water district, your irrigation district, or as you see here, you can contact Joe McGahan, the watershed coordinator. You can contact myself, the program manager, or you can go to our website, Coalition, www.westsidesjr.org. Thank you again for viewing this video.
Here are some key points to remember. All domestic wells and parcels enrolled in the Coalition need to be tested for nitrate, and the results reported to the Regional Board by December 31st, 2021, using the forms and information provided to you by the Regional Board. If you're contacted by the Coalition to participate in a surface water or groundwater focused outreach, please assist us by attending the meeting or viewing the video and returning the questionnaire to the Coalition. Your participation is mandatory for Coalition membership. Please return any and all crop year 2020 farm surveys and irrigation and nitrogen management plan summary reports to the Coalition as soon as you can. Return the video verification card to the Coalition as soon as possible. Feel free to mark up the card with all the farming entities that you represent who should get credit for the annual meeting requirement. If you have any questions about the verification process, please contact the Coalition.